What's up? What is going on? You know who it is. I am AK and I'm bringing you another machine. This one we're going to talk about is the low cost universal sorter, or what we endearingly called it, the universal. This is a machine that I started at when I was hired. We had MHAs, mail handlers, and clerks working at this machine, and it was pretty big. Not as big as a high speed, but it's a pretty decent sized machine. And we had 14 legs coming off this machine. Legs is pretty much the roller conveyor belt that the mail will get kicked off on, and you as an MHA will be physically picking up each parcel and putting it into an equipment. That is probably the main thing that is different about this machine. Is it's not automatically getting kicked off into an equipment like most of them are. You are going to be putting them inside the equipment. So it is one of the more physical jobs that are in the plant. Physical machines. Physical intensive machines. Gosh, in the plant. There will be a loader, and we had about 5, I believe, loading belts. So there'll be a mail handler or MHA that will be physically loading the parcels. And we had 14 legs. So depending how busy each leg is, there will be mail handlers and MHAs there to physically pick up each parcel that comes down the leg and put it into an equipment. It could be a very busy area. It could be a very slow area. It also depends on what tour you're on. That will determine how busy and how slow, or even if slow is a possibility. So we're going to start the loading area. We had about 5, I want to say, loading belts. And the loading belt is just a regular conveyor belt. And each conveyor belt, we have 5, had a little chair that a clerk will be sitting at. And the clerk is there as the keyer. That is what that position was called. And there will be the backup scanner in case for some reason the overhead scanner cannot scan the actual barcode. You're probably wondering, what reason would that be? First being, let's say the barcode is in an area on the package, but that's not in a very typical way where you can set it on there. It's hard to say that. I don't know how to say that exactly. But you understand, if you've done this, you would know what I mean. Packages are sometimes very odd shaped, or they might put the barcode on the top of a longer package and you don't want to put it on there and it falls forward. Stuff like that. You will then just put it on there in the most stable way, and the clerk will have a hand scanner and they can physically scan it. And if that doesn't work, they have a keypad where they will type in the zip code, and that will lock it into the system, and it will move up the belt and go to the conveyor belt to get kicked off eventually. Your aim is to get the parcels and put it on the lower belt with the address and the barcode facing up so that the overhead scanner can scan it. If you are the loader, you're going to be loading for hopefully not all day. It depends on your supervisor, but you could end up being there all day. You're going to be physically loading the mail. So it's a lot of bending, twisting, and obviously lifting. If your supervisor is cool, maybe they'll have you rotate every 2 hours after each break. That way you don't get too overtired. If the packages are heavy, please ask for help, and especially if it says 2-person lift. You will have heavy parcels. You will have heavy sacks. Always get someone to help you. Do not try to show off and lift it yourself. You do not want to wear your body down any faster than it will do on its own. You'll load it onto the belt, and it will be off it goes. And you can just keep loading. That's pretty much what you're going to do. You're just going to constantly load. It will move because it has little sections. It will scan, and it'll keep going. You're going to be lifting from a can, from APCs, from wires, from tri-walls, and from pallets. Pretty much, you're going to be lifting from everything. The cans, if some of you are, do not know about it, opens 2 ways. It has a hinge on the halfway down in the front, so you can just open it from the hinge front. But once you get to that part where it's too far down or too far back and you can't reach it, then you will turn it around. There is a lever on one of these sides. I think it's at the front of it. You will use your shoe, like your foot, you will step on it. You will hear it click and it will pop open the whole back side. It lifts up and there's a little tool that should be attached. I said should because sometimes it's not, but it should be attached. It looks like pretty much a little U shape, and you will lift up the door, lift it high enough so that you see some springs, and you will put the little tool, I do not know what that tool is called, and you will insert it there between the little slots. You can see what the slots are, and you'll put it there and it will lock the door in place, leaving it open. I usually like to pull down on it to check to ensure that it is secured, because you do not want to be in the path if that should fall down. The door is quite heavy. I have to get on my tippy toes to lift it all the way up, so there is a certain part you need to lift until you see the springs. That is what you can use. Usually, if it does not have that tool there, most of the time you will have an extra spare one just nearby that you can use for those times you do get a can that does not have it, which you will. That's pretty much for that. You're going to be just loading it there. Now what the clerk does, I already broke that down. I broke that down because you might have to do it. At my plant, the clerks came in around 10, between noon. It depends on what time their supervisor told them to come in. And you might have to be doing the keying. It's not a bad spot. I didn't like keying because I need to keep moving. I fall asleep very quickly. But it is okay if you're that person who falls asleep, key for a little bit, let the person load and switch places. That's what I did. And I find out that it's probably the best, every hour or every 30 minutes, however, switch places so one person doesn't get overtired loading, one person doesn't get too bored sleeping, however it works. Some people might like keying because literally you're just sitting there chilling, and if the box doesn't scans just fine, you don't have to do anything until a box does need to be scanned. The extra thing that does happen at the keyer is, like our universal has a state side, so that's all the parcels that are going to be going out of state, and most of them goes to the airport. So there's usually an airport code that will be printed out. So the overhead scanner might scan it or it might not. But once it scans it overhead, or if you have to physically scan it, it will print out another type of scanner. That's pretty much for the airport to scan, and you're going to pretty much stick it onto the box anywhere, but put it somewhere like it's visible, and it will go on its merry way. So that's the extra step at the keying area. You might have to type in a certain code. You will know which one it is for those that are going out of the country and for those going to Canada. There were two different ones, and that's how that will work for those. You will have a APC around the loading area that you will put the long parcels in that are too long to go in the machine, or it could cause a jam. Or the cylinder type tubes that has like pictures or posters in it, they will also go in as APC. They cannot go in the machine either, and they will be manually worked at an area we called the walk-offs. You will also have either a wire or APC, whatever you have available, that you will throw in smaller parcels. They're considered machinable and can be worked at another machine that deals with the small packages. You might even have a few other things. We had a few cans for stuff like hazmat. We had a tub for the passports, or express, the things that came there that cannot be worked on this machine for whatever reason. And there will also be a can that you will put the oversized packages or extremely heavy parcels in that will also be manually worked at our area we had walk-offs. That is pretty much the loading area. The rest is just the legs, which is pretty much you're going to be sweeping the lines. The parcels are going to be on the conveyor belt. They will go around, and eventually it will hit whatever leg that is, I guess, not really labeled. I can't even think of the right word, but each leg has a certain amount of zip codes. It will know where it will go, and it will kick off from the belt and come down the conveyor rolling belts. You are going to be there, physically there, to lift up the package and put it into an equipment. And depending on what line you are, it will either be an ABC, trials, or the majority of the time, for most of them, they were cans. You can fit more parcels in there. They're mostly going to a hub or they're going out of state. So you want to put as many parcels in there as possible. You could stack it neatly to fit more, or you could just throw it in. It really depends on you and whoever you might work with. You might run into some anal type of, mail handler who's a bit OCD who just might fix everything up. Don't worry about them. Let them do their thing. We had someone like that. He would even rearrange the actual equipment to look just so. Hey, let them do their thing. You might even grow a habit to it and understand why they do what they do. But as an MHA, that is what you're going to be doing when you're either working any of those legs. Some legs are busier than others, some are not as busy. So depending where you're working, if it's not as busy, you might be working several legs, or you might be working one whole side. I've definitely done that. Way our machine was, there was one side that was only for the zip codes that we service, and then the whole other side was everything going out of state. They were either separated by the airport codes or by the airport, or both. Some of them were separated by American Airlines, and then they had these certain codes that went to it. Some of them are mixed, and then we also had some that were separated, whether it was FedEx or UPS, or I think, is there one more? Is it Pitney's? DHL. No, honestly, I think it was just FedEx and UPS. We do have, DHL, but I think that's a different machine. I could be wrong. I almost can't really remember. It's been a couple months since we had this machine. But that is pretty much the gist of it that you will be doing as a MHA. It is a very physical job, so you're going to be physically loading the mail, physically unloading the mail. You're going to be the person that's putting it into the equipment. You're also going to be the person that's going to be moving the full equipment. You're going to stage them somewhere. They also have their own placards. You will put the placard in the front where it should be, so that the mail handler who is driving at that machine that day can pick it up and take it to the dock that is printed on that placard. You're also going to be moving an empty equipment to replace the full equipment and putting in a new placard. You should have a MTEL person that will be printing all the placards. You'll have one on each equipment, and then you will have extras taped. At least that's what we did. We had them extras taped on the legs so that you can just automatically put in a new one. If you run out of placards, find paper, write whatever zip code that it is or what it is, airport code, whatever, and you'll tape it into that equipment, just so anybody who is working knows what goes in there, so they can put it in there and it doesn't overload the leg, and it keeps you knowing what goes in there also. And whoever prints up the placards, they'll come around, realize, hey, they need more placards for this, and they'll print it out and bring some extras. And as I just talked about that, oh my gosh, I wanted to hit on this. The belts. The belts do get full. Sometimes, like I said, it gets busy, so sometimes it'll kick boxes back to back to back. Once the whole roller belt is full, there is a light that will light up, and there's an alarm that will signify this is backed up. At the very beginning or the very end, however you want to call it, of the belt, right where it gets kicked off, there's like a little flat area before it hits the rollers. There's a sensor there, and when that sensor is blocked, it will signal to the machine, hey, something's here, and it's going to pretty much tell the machine, hey, this line is full, even though it might not be. It could just be stuck. But either way, it's going to think that it's full, and it's going to light up and send an alarm very loudly. You can't ignore it. That pretty much tells you, hey, go clear the line or move the box. You could just move the box out the way. It depends on what's going on. Like, we came in at 6 a.m. A lot of the times we had to set up the machine, and majority of the time we had no equipment, so we had to just keep stacking the boxes until we had equipment to put it in. That's also is what you something you can do is to keep that area from being blocked, so the alarm don't keep going off, because it's going to keep ringing the alarm until that box that's blocking it is removed. So you could just move the box and stack it if you have to stage it to put it into equipment. If you have equipment there, you're just going to just try to clear it up as fast as you can, or you could just move that last box. Like I said, it might kick off more boxes faster than you can clear it. It all depends on how busy it is. The light is there to help you. If you are working one side and you hear an alarm, you can just go to the end, look down, see where the light's coming from, and go straight to that leg and clear it. I believe leg 14 at my location was also the reject line. It still had its own zip codes, and it was the reject line. That line got full, and alarm was almost always going off, because all the other boxes that didn't get kicked off, it got rejected. It would get off this reject line, and you will have an APC there where you will take the rejects, and you would know what the rejects are. First, they're not any of the zip code that goes on that's assigned to that particular leg, and it might be out of state. A lot of the time it's usually the out of state or the foreign mail, but occasionally you might get some that's on other legs. You would just take those and you'll take them to the proper leg. For everything else, especially if it goes on the state side, at least for us, states was on the other side of the machine, so you will just put it on the equipment and it will just go back to the loading station to get reloaded. Hopefully it will read right and it will go to where it needs to go. If not, I'm not really sure what they did with it. Maybe it gets manually walked off, because sometimes it will just come right back. And I believe it does 3 rotations around to get kicked off before it comes down the rejection line. I want to say that is pretty much it on the universal. That's what I want to say. It's pretty much it's not an easy, let me say that wrong. It's not a hard place to work at. Probably the most hardest thing about it would be constantly setting up the area, making sure you keep some of the placards or the labels, because that's the only time it gets hard. If you don't remember everything, you're not going to know where to put things. Definitely ask questions when you're there. You do not want to put the wrong, the parcels into the wrong equipment. So do ask questions. Majority of the time, the mail handlers, at least at my plant, were very helpful to answer any questions to make sure we put things in the right spot, because they do not want to work behind us, just like we probably don't want to work behind them. They want to make sure it gets right, because it does roll back down if too many things are wrong. So if you have any questions, please throw it down in the comments. If I did miss anything, also just throw in the comments to share the knowledge. Again, we do not have this machine anymore, so hopefully, I think I got everything that I remember, so we no longer work there. The spider replaced this machine, and I will not talk about the spider. Maybe I will one day. It could be an update if I end up on a different tour on that one hopefully fateful day when I turn regular, because I believe it only runs on tour 1, so I have not seen this machine even really ran. So that could be an update video for later, but I will check with you guys later on a different day. I'm sorry there's not a lot of images. I couldn't really find any. I tried a few times. There's weren't really any images of this machine. I just found a clip which I shared at the beginning. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will check with you guys on a different day. AKF.